Today we got some hot topics. We're gonna start right at the top with Hawkmoon, and I want to know your guys' thoughts on it.
Well, we probably have different takes because we're in sort of different communities that we're rooted in.
Yeah,
Obviously, Kakis is certainly the PVE sweat lord in the group.
that's
And I'm
true.
more
I
the
mean, I already took it through the entire Last Wish raid. That's what was my video that came out today.
Mhm.
So I'm well versed in that. I mean, I can start from the. You guys will probably take it away from. You guys probably use it in PvP, the Crucible.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
let me
Oh yeah,
take it away. When I made my much higher effort video, what I did, so basically the cool thing about the Hawkmoon, and I love when they do this, is like they didn't have to do this. It says precision final blows or precision hits increase that paracausal shot damage, right? And just that the fact that Bungie put in or hits like changes everything, and it means that now you can use this weapon against a boss, right? And you could just against one boss get all headshots against the boss, and that last shot cranks. Like against some of the raid bosses, you're doing like 60, 70. Against Riven, it hit for 99,000 damage with that
wow.
fully maxed up. Now, like obviously probably using a slug shotgun would be better in a lot of scenarios, but it makes this primary weapon actually pack a pretty big punch if you're able to trigger it. And that's always cool. Like it has a PvE utility, which but like they didn't have to make it have. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
still certainly I think better in PvE just because you're probably not going to give up your exotic slot for like a primary. There's just so much more powerful things you can do in PvE. But it's certainly not bad.
I feel like
Yeah.
there's so many situations where in PvE you're just dumping heavy and special that you'd probably want like a better heavy and special. You know what I mean for an exotic.
Yeah,
Um,
it is kind of in that weird spot where, yeah, it's actually pretty cracked in terms of damage output, but then it's like, well, if it's not as good as like an anarchy plus a slug, it's like, well, why not just use that? And then it's like your primary, you probably want to deal with ads, and because it's so good at single target damage, maybe it's not the best at ads. Whereas like a sunshot would be way better at clearing ads if you're going to give up your exotic slot to a hand cannon.
or like
So
a
it's in
risk
kind of a weird
runner,
spot.
right? Like
Yeah,
risk runner is gonna
yeah.
be cracked.
So it's in kind of a weird spot, but it is very satisfying, like getting pericausal shot up and like one tapping a yellow bar from like
Hmm.
across the map. That's very
Sure.
nice. And if you're a new player and you're just using it and you run out of ammo and it's all you have, it's like that's actually going to be putting a pretty significant amount of damage forward.
Now,
Yeah,
Ryan, what about on console? Like, how is this gun feeling? I
yeah.
haven't.
That's a really interesting conversation to have because it's definitely people from different platforms have different takes on it. I will say going into this conversation that I think it's certainly worth talking about how the gun performs in PVE, but in Destiny 1, Hawkmoon was not a PvE weapon. It was
No.
not it was not in any PvE build. So, I mean, setting your expectations realistically is something you want to do going into these conversations. From the PvP side of things on console, it feels really, really good. The stats are just mind-bogglingly good. The base stats on the gun are just they're fantastic and unrivaled by almost every other hand cannon in the game. There's only a select few that can reach some of those numbers. So it just feels good, even as if it was just a legendary hand cannon, it would just feel good to
But
shoot.
sorry to interrupt, but like no legendary hand cannon. If you like the stats, I think people are understating. Like no legendary hand cannon has that much stability, that much handling compared for
Mhm.
its range. Like it's insane.
Yeah, it's
Is
bonkers.
is it better stat wise than Ace? Ace of Spades?
In most categories, not all, but in most categories, yes, it is. I think doesn't Ace outrange it though?
Yeah.
I'm off the top of my head. I'm someone can fact check that. But it bottom line is it feels really good.
Mhm.
Paracausal shot. In addition to that, again, it's not luck in the chamber on 2 bullets out of the magazine like it was in D1. I actually like this better because it's sort of like a strategic mini game that you get to play. And even when you're not getting that like huge damage final bullet, it still is going to give you these situations where you're outnumbered, right? And you drop the first guy, maybe 3 tap him, and you move on to the second. And every now and then, you're just going to get a really nice 2 tap that's just going to save your life. So it's just gonna work every now and then. That perk, whether you're queuing it up, being intentional about it or not, it's just gonna work. Kind of like in D1 with Hawkmoon. Every now and then, you're getting some bonus damage. It's gonna save your life, and it's gonna feel really good when that happens. But the thing I like about it this time around is that you can be intentional about it and you can plan for it. And so, for example, I had a situation today live on stream where I got the 7 stack and I instantly checked the super statuses of the other team. Sure enough, a guy had an arc staff ready to go. So I kind of ducked into cover instead of fighting the next guy that I saw, and I waited until I heard the arc strider pop, and I just slid out and one banged the super. Just one shot from a primary weapon, dead. And it's so cool to be able to have that option to really be intentional about it, to plan for it, and to be strategic about the way that you use that paraconsole shot. I love it. Now, to circle back to your question, Mike, I have heard a number of people that I trust in the PC community saying it doesn't feel that good compared to some of the other hand cannons that are on the main stage. It doesn't feel that good. And
yeah, that's exactly why I wanted to ask specifically on console. Like, does it feel pretty good compared to other hand cannons? Because there's a bunch on PC that I think I would rather use, and for whatever reason, I feel like this is one of the only exotics that like doesn't feel very exotic on PC. For me, like I understand it's an exotic, and I understand that the perk is exotic and like what it does. But I feel like in a lot of situations, it like doesn't feel like it's giving me like a great advantage. Where I would rather have Ace of Spades, I would rather have Thorn. I'd rather have my spare rations in a lot of cases.
It kind of also I've noticed like it is a factor. Like it takes up a lot of your screen. You have like those extra little wing things, and if you're on PC, especially like because you extend the what's it called, the FOV field of view, and then you can deal with guys at such longer ranges. Like those things actually do kind of get in the way a bit. Whereas like an ace is just it has the barrel, and then the sight just sits above it, like perfectly, really easy to use.
Well, that's why spare rations is it's so like it's like very skinny as a gun overall.
Yeah,
so it's
the
really
gun
easy to
really
see.
does sit under your sight picture with spare rations.
Yeah,
I mean, like it is a factor. Like people will buy ornaments because they have better sights and like will take up less of your sight picture and stuff like it. So that's something I did notice. I'm like trying to shoot Callie and she's like wailing her head around. I'm like, where is this stupid thing? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, that's why people don't use Sunshot, even though it's like, you know, statistically now one of the best.
Yeah, on numbers is great. Yeah.
Just because it bounces a lot, it gets really in your grill, and like there's so much flashing going on. It's like, am I hitting him or am I not hitting him? Like, I don't know. Hawkmoon. The thing is like it's not Hawkmoon. It doesn't have like any of the perks of Hawkmoon.
I'm glad though. Like it has the
feelings.
style. It has Hawkmoon originally had good stats too. It has the feel of like getting that one shot kill. Like you say it doesn't have the exact perks, true, but like it gives you that possibility to just get this insane super kill, which was the cool part. But it takes out the randomness. I'm so surprised when people are like, "Oh, I wish it was the original." Like, no, you don't. That was such BS that someone would just randomly.
One time.
When you were the better player, you would have had them dead to rights, and they just like hit fire, randomly double stack up the lucky shot and instant kill you, and you're like, what is this, right?
Exactly.
Now you can't complain because if you get one shot, you're like, well, this guy hit all his shots. Like he did the work.
It's like the Zen Meteor of D2 right now. That's the way I see it. Zen Meteor was a mini game gun in D1. You got to get those precision kills to get your super bullet for your big explosion. And that's what Hawkmoon is to me right now. It's that mini game gun where you're like, okay, I 3-tap that guy. Oh, I 3-tap that guy. I got at least 6. Can I get to 7? You know, and then you wail on that big shot. It's just, to me, it's all about having fun. And gaming to me isn't always about the question of, is this optimal? That to me is a secondary question that I ask. When I'm going out there to play Crucible day in and day out, I'm not in a tournament, I'm not playing trials, I'm just going there to play PvP. It's like, what do I want to do today that's going to be fun and engaging? And I got to say, I mean, seeing a spare rations and beloved clip on Twitter right now, I feel nothing. I've seen a million of them, and even if the gameplay is super impressive, I just don't care about those clips anymore. I don't care about them anymore. There you go. But if I see a Hawkmoon 3-tap, get the 7 stack and put down a super, I'm like, yeah, maybe that's a really fun and rewarding thing to see and experience.
Yeah, it has that fun factor. Like you said, it's a little mini game, and not everything is going to be the best. Not everything has to be God tier. Like you just need the variety in this type of game, and people are gonna find it fun to use, and someone's gonna use that. I think in PvE, I think someone's gonna use it and they fall in love with the gun. I almost see more people being interested in using it in PvE for that single target and like having a really powerful primary feel over
Mhm.
PvP. I think people are gonna still stick with Thorn. I think people are gonna still stick with Ace. Long
Probably the
term.
sweats will, but like you're gonna have that moment where the one guy gets a one-shot kill against a super, like TV said, and then they're like hooked. They're like, well, why would
Yeah,
I ever take this thing off?
fair
Right.
Right?
enough.
This is my thing now.
I
Yeah.
just think it's hard to do that. I feel like it like statistically is like pretty hard, and
Yeah,
like
but the worst.
TV
Well,
can pull it off way more often than the average player.
listen. It's already got banger stats. Like it's already on its own a pretty decent hand cannon. And then when you start to be able, like you're gonna be able to start to farm it at some point and get it randomly. And according to like what we know, some of the perks it can spawn with is like killing wind. It can get rangefinder. It can get
Rangefinder.
Okay.
opening shot. So now
Surplus.
you're
Don't sleep on surplus either.
you're telling me this Hawkmoon can get, and it can get a random barrel too. And right now it
Mhm.
has like corkscrew, which is not the best barrel. So it can get a better barrel and now killing wind. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, you know what I mean? I think this is like the worst version of Hawkmoon.
True,
Because
yeah.
that transformative perk does literally nothing. So even if you, no matter which perk you get, it's going to be better than this Hawkmoon. So the worst version of Hawkmoon is already doing decent. Like I think it's going to be cool.
And what if they
What do you
added
think-
like a magazine for the catalyst or something like that? You know what I mean? Like then
Exactly,
it could be
Catalyst too. What do you
rats.
think of this though? What do you think of them putting RNG on the one piece of loot that didn't have to rely on RNG in Destiny?
You mean exotics?
Yes.
I
Well,
don't mind it.
Yeah.
For me, I like it when they do it this way, where they're gonna do it with a one thing, experiment with it. They're like, oh, we'll put out the base version with killer stats, so we can always fall back on that. But we'll experiment with it with these random rolls. If the community likes it and they respond really well to it, and the activity that we have them farm to get those, then hey, we'll continue to do stuff like this every now and then. But if we find that the feedback is kind of like, we're not really about this, then we just don't do it again. I like when they do it this way. It's just a real simple way to test something out and gauge feedback.
And like
Yeah.
your exotics have like different stats on them. So my one exotic might be better than yours. My transversa might be better.
Well, armor, yeah, but like weapons, it's like
Yeah, but if it's
if
like
I
the
want the
main
sunshot,
exotic perk is like if the main exotic perk is the exact same, and I put in the time to do a lost sector for weapons, and I get a better one, like is that a problem? It gives you something to do.
because again, it's like that RNG aspect. Like, how frustrating is it when you get into a bad RNG loop, right? Where you do the raid, you don't get what you want, you don't get what you want, you don't get what you want, and you just get frustrated. You're like, I really can't get like boots. Like, really, this game doesn't have any sort of smart loot, despite the 20 times Bungie has claimed it does. You know what I mean? Like, that sucks. Now, the fact that you have some escape valves for that, and one of those being exotic weapons, if you get the Eyes of Tomorrow rocket launcher at the end of the raid, you got it. You're good.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't have to grind a good version of that. I'm not saying that this is a bad idea, and I agree with TV. It's like they're trying it for this one thing. Let's see how this turns out. But I hope that this is like a unique thing that Bungie maybe does once in a while, because it's kind of frustrating to say. Normally, I could say to you, "Hey, Ace of Spades is cracked. Use it." And any player can take that advice, and their Ace of Spades will be like mine. But you can't say it with the Hawkmoon, because my Hawkmoon could be different than your Hawkmoon, and my Hawkmoon could be performing way better than your Hawkmoon because I have a good perk, let's say, and a good barrel. And that's kind of a frustrating thing. It's like, oh, use Hawkmoon, it's good, but if they don't have a good version, then they're going to have a different experience.
That's true. That's very true. I think we've talked about Hawkmoon enough. Let's move on to some other juicy topics.